Today's show is brought to you by...
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour and join our community. Thank you.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today? Oh my gosh, 2 weeks in a row. I am such a jerk. You were muted. No, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Really?
Too.
You muted me again?
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Don't fake it now. You're a liar.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm going to cut the music because I'm so embarrassed right now. Week after week after week, I got to just slap myself. This is getting frustrating because I am a professional, darn it. And this is what I do. And I'm not going to cut this out because I'm lazy. But I did it to Joe last week. I did it. Didn't I do it to y'all the week before? And then I did it to Tyler Sadler not that long ago. I've done it to Kenny. I've done it to Brandon. Done it to Jason Chalfer.
We all know that your ultimate goal would be to have us all silenced for the whole show. So
it's just me talking, oh, this show is for me. It is really.
Be sure and watch on video so you can see the other two guys nodding their heads yes to everything I say.
That's right. Yeah, this show is. Yeah, it would just confirm that this show is all for my ego. Real quick.
Speaking of that, I have an idea for a little infomercial here. Concerning the Patreon program. The last time I was on, you went on about it for like 10 minutes of the show. So I'm going to use that same thing they do on PBS. I used to do on PBS when I was a kid, that if you call in and become a member now, we'll take you back to your regular programming faster. So
that's awesome.
So if people will join the Patreon program, I promise I won't let Josh talk about it so much on the show.
Shut Josh up.
That is rude, guys. Here I am trying to provide for us. And
please join the Patreon program so he won't talk so much about it.
That's messed up. And you saw my show notes too. Now I don't even want to talk about it, but I'm going to.
I didn't actually read the show note part. I just read the questions. I didn't realize the show notes ever change. I thought it was just a question.
Sometimes they don't, but frequently they do. But Todd,
I think it's ironic too that I don't ever read the questions typically, and then I read the questions today, and we had to change them, right? So.
We did, but only for preparation's sake. They'll come. So this week, we're recording again on a Wednesday, so this will publish tomorrow. Next week, we're going to be recording from Teddy's Brew House, which I'm told is opening next week. Is that right, James?
Yep. Next Wednesday is what they told us.
So we'll record on Monday of next week and publish that Thursday. So that'll be the day after their grand opening. Hopefully it all goes well for them. I'm very excited. Their equipment, well, you've brewed on it. I'm preaching to the choir to you, James, but their equipment looks solid. Their setup looks solid. Do you know, will they be feeding us? Because I'm going to come hungry. I don't know if
I don't know about the food, but they got plenty of beer on tap.
They have Stout. I mean, that's the same as a meal.
I did. I opened up, I think it was the second breakfast stout I've had of the year at your house last week, Todd. And
did you finally drink one? I bought those for you 6 months ago. I'm glad you had one.
It reminded me how much I love Founder's Breakfast Stout. And
it's so funny because when I was going to do the infomercial thing, I was going to mention, just like the breakfast stout, I'm not going to let him talk about it anymore. And you brought it up. I mean, that is so cool.
Isn't that funny? It's
ironic, I think.
You banned me on breakfast stout. So what did I do? I did a hard 180 and went all Kolsch, which I still am. Like I know. Don't say, you jerk. I have, this is the first time on my dad's taps that we don't have a Kolsch for the whole year, actually, since January. We have Joe's Pale Ale took up 1 tap. And then the other tap is the brown ale, the Northern English brown ale that we brewed together.
I haven't tried it yet. How is it?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Good.
We have about
mine's still cold crashing, clarifying. So
yeah, right. Yeah, we conditioned ours for like 10 days and then transferred it. It looked great. It tastes great. It's dry. You're gonna like it. Well, you've tried yours not at all, not even
not with any. I mean, I tried it right after it was done. I mean, just right out of the same time I did with you. It wasn't fermented at all.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Ours is
okay. No, that's not true. I tried it when I moved it from the primary to the secondary. It was very good. Yeah.
It is going to be,
but it wasn't carbonated.
And then I do have we drank so much. James sent me home with the keg of his Kolsch 3 weeks ago now. And we drank so much of it that it is now in my kegerator behind me, which the solution I told my dad, we either got to build out a kegerator, a keezer at his house so that we aren't limited to 2 kegs at a time. Or I'm thinking about moving mine to his house temporarily so that we can have more beers on tap there or use it for fermenting, which is almost kind of relevant to a question that we have later on. But then obviously the problem that Todd's about to bring up, I can see it on his face on the side view over here. Then how are you going to have beer at your house is what I'm assuming you were going to say, right, Todd?
Well, I had 2 things, but yeah, that was definitely one of them. Yeah.
I could see it on your face. You were just itching. I should have went to group view so people could see your smirky face right there. But yeah, I want to move it. Don't hate on me. I don't use it as much. And so I figure if we take it over there, like right now I have water on tap. I don't need water on tap for the immediate. My parents host so much. They host little get-togethers with their neighbors. They host holidays.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to have 4 beers on tap for a party than it does for me to have a keg of fancy water and some bottles of Fru still in my keg.
I mean, it makes sense to me too. I could understand wanting to have my beer at somebody else's house.
You're such a jerk, man. You're not good at sarcasm. It's too obvious. Like you're way too obvious about it.
So I want to mention something though. That's my thought before I lose it. As you know, we are working very, very, very hard to bring a lot more recipes to Keg Connection. And a lot of them are recipes that have been tested a lot in the future, a lot are not. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing going forward is when we brew, meaning anybody that works at Keg Connection, Homebrew Supply, CM Becker, we all kind of brew as a group. We're going to try to brew different recipes each time until we go through the majority of the recipes that we have on the sites. And I think that's going to really help the show because it's going to allow us to talk about different recipes, different styles as we brew them, what we like about them, what we don't like about them, what our experiences was with brewing them. And I think it'll add a lot more depth to the show to be able to talk about other recipes besides Kolsch. Yeah.
Besides Kolsch. That's rude. Again, we don't only just talk about Kolsch, but we do talk about it a lot.
I'm giving you a hard time.
Yeah, I know you are, you which I am, despite your best efforts. I'm going to segue so I don't spend more time than necessary. Speaking of Kolsch, that is this month's brew club for the Patreon at the top tier. That is the recipe of the month. We've sent out a handful of them now, extract or all grain. If you're part of that top tier, that is the featured recipe for October. It's not too late to get in on it. But the one thing I really am excited about that you can't stop me from talking about for this month's Patreon is our live Q&A coming up this Friday, October is it the 25th? At 6 p.m. Central on our Facebook group. If you are like James and you don't do Facebook, you can message me and I will get a link for you to be able to watch it on a private. I think I'm going to use YouTube because you can do private streams that way. But or I may just stream to that and post the link in the Facebook page. But we're doing our live Q&A with Lorena Evans from Brewer's Friend. She is amazing. I can't say enough nice things about her. If she listens to this show, she'd probably get tired of hearing me suck up to her so much, especially since she already agreed to do the Q&A. But I'm really excited for it. We have a ton of questions that have already come in from people who can't make the live Q&A. And we have a good chunk of our Patreon community who said they're going to be there for it live. So I'm really excited for it. It's going to be fun. Any level of our Patreon, you will qualify for our live Q&As. So patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. And then obviously we are doing our giveaway for a Fizz Kit soda carbonating bundle on October the 30th. If you go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, you can look at all the giveaway details. Each tier gives you, the more down you go on the tiers, the more giveaways that you, entries that you get. So the people who are in that level that get the recipe too, they're also getting, I think, 5 entries to the giveaway, which Todd kind of chastised me after I did the tiers because I'm bad at math. If you go look at that top tier that comes with the recipe, it's you get a lot. And every month where Todd was like, I thought you were trying to raise money. I go, oh, crap. Like, I didn't do the math very good. But you haven't told me I had to change it yet. You said, let's just see how it goes.
No, I think it's great. I think it lets people try different recipes, and it all kind of works together. I think it's a good thing. I don't have any bad things to say about it.
Except that we're not raising much money. But you did tell me. The funny thing is, you did tell me Keg Connection's going to sell it to you for real cheap. And you weren't joking. Like, I got the invoice for the recipes that now we have money coming in for the podcast. I'm like, oh, thank God. I didn't want to have to pay for it out of my, I don't like spending my money, Todd. Spending your money.
I know.
That's no big deal.
No, I think it's great. And I think the Patreon program is a good program. I was just saying that we could use that PBS model to incentivize people to join.
To shut me up quicker. Yeah. And then one more small talk item that's not the Patreon. Done talking about it until you hear the bumper at the end of the show. James, when I was up there, you were brewing, I believe, the Bohemian Pilsner.
Yep.
What's the status on that? Is it sitting in the fermenter?
It started at 10:52 Friday, and this morning it was at 10:20 doing the diacetyl. So
that was the recipe from Homebrew Supply's website, right? Or did you?
It was.
Okay, because people were asking me about it, and I had to remember to bring it up on the show because
a super simple recipe, by the way. I tested what it showed with the results I got, and I hit the gravity exactly what they said it would. So I think if anybody wanted to brew really good, it tastes real good. It's a real simple, easy lager to do.
I love it when recipes go straightforward like that. Like when my dad and I were doing the extract brewing and the all grain brewing, but really it was evident in the extract brewing. Like your recipes is all we've ever brewed, except for one time Joe came up and we did his IPA. But your extract recipes specifically made unrealistic expectations, I think, for us because we never had any hiccups during the brew day.
Good.
And the recipes came out how they were supposed to. I funny enough, I was telling my dad, man, I really want an alt on tap for Christmas time. And I was telling him, I might get the extract version so that we don't mess it up.
Do it quicker.
Yeah, so we can do it quicker.
Well, you know what? You guys have been brewing on the cooler brew for quite a while now. I would do it on the cooler brew.
Really? You don't see me messing it up? Okay.
No, not at all. In fact, y'all have an extra burner. I would do a decoction on that. You could just do one decoction on it and have pretty good results.
Maybe I will do that. Did you end up doing, you did a decoction on the Bohemian, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a single on it.
I just like saying the word, and it makes me feel more scientific if I tell you were going there. Oh, Todd, get a load of my decoction, buddy.
I knew it.
Josh, I don't think you're doing that right. It's like I'm 12 years old all over again. Anyway, the small talk is over. Wrapping it up. We do have 2 questions for today's show. Oh, no. One more thing. I'm so sorry. I told him I would bring it up. The AHA's Learn to Homebrew Day is November the 2nd. You can go to the Homebrew, the American Homebrewers Association website. They have information all about it to find events and stuff that are going on near you. I don't think we have nothing planned on that day except the gym that I train at is doing a fundraiser that day in the afternoon. But I do plan on posting and reposting all y'all's brew day stuff. And I'm going to see if my dad wants to brew that evening just so we can say, oh, look, we're brewing on Learn to Homebrew Day. But I did want to bring that up right now, just so you know, it is Learn to Homebrew Day is done in the first Saturday of November because the weather's typically pretty good countries wide. And a lot of people brew outside on like gas type setups like my pop and I do. And it's also, there's just something about the fall that makes you want to brew. I think it's probably weather and then good food. You could brew for the holidays, and sharing the gift of home brewing is always fun. Homebrewsupply.com right now has all of their home brewing equipment kits, all of their recipe kits, and their kegging kits on sale. So it's a good time right now to get into home brewing. And obviously people who listen to this show are already home brewing. Otherwise, why are you listening to us? But sharing is one of the best parts, one of my favorite parts about doing what we do. So Learn to Homebrew Day, November the 2nd. That's also my 34th birthday. Hey. And that's my segue.
34.
That's my segue to tell you, James. Last week gave you a break, Mr. 50.
Yeah.
That's where we clap right now. Don't shake your head, no.
Yeah.
Don't shake your head,
You
no.
made it, dude. You made it. You should be happy you made it.
You don't even talk. I forgot about it. And then last week when I was up there, I was like, oh, it's his birthday. And we were so swamped or whatever, I didn't even come into your office hardly at all. And I totally realized, I didn't bring it up. I didn't tell him happy birthday. I know what I'll do. I'll wait till we do it on the show. 50, man.
Appreciate it.
You don't look like I'm not sucking up to you because this is nothing I haven't told you before. You're aging great. I don't know why 50. Like you're so. Oh, you know what though? You're always reluctant for your birthday. Period. You could not be more
I don't
indifferent.
like birthdays. Yeah. I'll just sleep through it. I had a friend of mine. I was going to bed. I turned into an old man 5 years ago, and it was about 8:00. So I was heading to bed, and Wayne knocked on the door, and he had a whole cooler full of English ales. He had oatmeal stouts, he had porters, and he even had an English brown. And he said, "You didn't think I would let you go through your 50th birthday alone?" And we sat around and at the bar and had a good visit.
I
He's
didn't
a
know
good guy.
that. That's really cool.
Dude, what a
Yeah,
cool
he's a
guy.
good guy.
I got to meet
And
him.
he dropped me off
Except
some-
he didn't call me.
Well, it was, I'm telling, literally walking to the bedroom to go to bed, and he's knocking on the door. And he also gave me, he has some Wagyu beef. He's got some Wagyu cattle. And he gave me a Wagyu filet for my birthday. So I thought,
Dang, man, that's a good friend. I'm not even, all I did was try to embarrass you on a podcast. I am not a good friend.
Y'all both know Wayne. He's
I was gonna say he is
good
such
guy.
a cool dude. I wish he had to leave that brew day that we had over at Todd's house a little early, but he's super funny. Like he's
an Uncle Remus. He's got a story about everything.
yeah, but his story, he's funny. Yeah. I was about to say, but it would be an inside joke about other people who work there that no one would get. I was just saying, or his fish.
I know where you're going on there.
Yeah, I know. And inside jokes.
Todd does too.
Inside jokes never work. Like on The Office, where the Jim and Josh do a joke, and like, oh, it's an inside joke, and then Michael goes, I'd like to be a part of one someday. Like that's all of our listeners right now. But anyway,
I like inside jokes.
I know, and I'm not
gonna
gonna cut this out either because I'm lazy. But anyway, so yes, a lot of cool stuff. Happy birthday, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you.
Moving.
Yes, happy birthday.
Segueing now to question number 1 that was submitted by Landon using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Landon wrote, I'm looking at upgrading from my fermenting buckets and glass carboys up to a proper stainless steel fermenter. Specifically, I'm looking at maybe getting a 7-gallon fermentator from Blickman because they make them weldless, which leads me to my question. Is there a better option for me in that same price range, and how important is the weldless feature of a fermenter, of their fermenter? Blickman seems to emphasize that point, and I'm too dumb to know how big of a deal it may be. Any advice you fellas have is appreciated. Landon, it's a great question. If getting the 7-gallon, I'm assuming he's still going to be doing 5-gallon batches. Otherwise, he would have gone up to a 14. I think is the usual step up if you're doing 10-gallon batches. But James, well, both y'all actually, I'm going to throw it to James just because I know you have a fermentator.
I do. Of actually 42-gallon, we converted to 27, and they're correct. They punch. I think they call it a rotomold, but they punch those things out in one piece, and there's no welds whatsoever on that part.
And what's the benefit of that? I mean, I know it, but I'm sucking out the answer. Like, what is the benefit?
If you remember, Todd had a conical stainless steel that had been upstairs, and I pulled down to use doing a couple of batches, and it got infected. And I had 2 infections in a row, and come to find out where they had welded the cone to the body, there was some pinholes. So anytime you have welds, they need to be sanitary inspected welds, because if you have pinholes, they can harbor bacteria that you just can't get out. So you have to literally burn the thing to get it, right? Grind it down, re-weld it. It has to be perfectly smooth.
Yeah, that brew bucket.
No perforations.
That brew bucket's still up there. Is there any? We're not done with the question, and I'm kind of sidetracking early. But just real quick, is there any use for can you even do sours on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do sours, and actually, we'd be perfect for sours. But I would probably take it down and grind the weld out to see if you can smooth it out, and just do a real heavy sanitation with some acid-based sanitizers to see if you can get that out.
Now, Todd, I know you obviously, you've been in the industry long enough. We know all the guys at Blickman and SS and Spike and whatnot. But for your equipment, you have, as well as at the office, that beautiful, is it the CF15? Or what is the...
Yeah, it's a CF model. So it's a Spike. We have one at the office too. So interestingly enough, on this question, we have both systems at the office side by side. And they're both very, very good systems. I would say probably the thing that stands out the most for us, James, you may not agree with me, with the Spike, is that it holds pressure.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. Yeah,
you can actually pressurize that tank, and I've got a beer behind us here that's fermenting, and I finished that beer. We did that 3 weeks ago, right?
2.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
You're talking about the Kolsch.
Yep, sorry. You did that longer.
Yeah.
Y'all did that a month ago, right?
That's
a month ago. Yeah. It's still sitting in there. So it wasn't quite clear enough for me. I've got it crashed down. It's about 40 degrees, and I'm just letting it clarify more. But while I'm doing that, it's hooked up to CO2. So, and it's hooked up at it's fluctuating between 10 and 12 PSI. So when I'm finished with that beer and I put it into a keg, it will be carbonated, and it will be carbonated correctly. I don't have to do anything else. There's a lot to be said for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, great feature.
Yeah. So also with the Blickman, I believe you can pressurize it enough to transfer, right, James?
That's correct. About 2 psi is all I'm safe to move at, and because of the fact that another thing is because it is weldless, the way the valves attach to the body, it uses O-rings, so it doesn't handle pressure really. It'll start leaking pretty good if you try to put. And I would not recommend anybody to put any kind of pressure. They're not designed for that. They have a lot bigger opening. That lid, there's more pounds per square inch on that lid because the lid's bigger, and you don't want a lid blowing in your head, in your face.
Yeah, and you're talking about the fermentator specifically.
It's an excellent fermenter. I mean,
it is really good.
James has had it forever, and you've been super happy with it, right?
Yeah, I bought that in 2010, and it's that's the cool thing about being a one-piece bottom is there's nothing. I haven't had any issues other than take it apart and clean it, replace O-rings every now and then.
Great
product.
And I wonder how we can upsell people on this. You'd have to be very busy. The James Carlson insulation upgrade.
Yeah, it works. It does.
It really
does.
I'll
put that against the other one.
It really does. That's why I bring it up, because I will repost a photo of it to our Instagram when this publishes so that you have a reference point, because I forgot to call up an image to be able to superimpose it right here on the screen. But
it's a thing of beauty.
It is. It looks like Pizza the Hut.
It does.
It's beautiful. Someone also said it looks like a scrotum, and I was like, no. And then I had my vasectomy, and I was like, oh, I see it now. Sorry.
But it'll hold within 3 or 4 degrees of what the chiller does. So, it's got a fairly large coil inside, so that helps too. But insulation made all the difference in the world, because it was, Todd, was it 10, 15 degrees off when I didn't insulate it? Sweat like crazy.
Well, and that's James, you brought that up. That's the other thing I would mention between the two. When you insulated that one, and I guess it has a larger coil.
Yeah,
it really gets a lot further down than the Spike does. So the Spike, the problem I see with the Spike when you hook it up to the chiller, the glycol chiller, is that I cannot get mine below about 42 degrees, and I've insulated it as well, and I cannot get it down below that 42 degrees. Whereas, what are you getting the Blickman down to?
I've got it down as low as 34 degrees.
Well, and you did some insulation on the spike. Don't you get that one pretty low too, or the one in the office?
We think it's not the insulation. We think it's the size of the
coil
of the coil, because they're both insulated, but one gets a lot colder than the other one does.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about putting an auxiliary coil on that and then just looping it in with the chiller in a series, kind of like you would a battery, and then just put it on the bigger part of the lid and I think that would do it, because we know we're insulated. We just don't have enough cooling capacity on the coil.
Yeah,
I think.
Interesting. Now,
we just gave him a lot more information than he
right. Well, and I want to keep giving him more only because I like going the cheap route as well. I'm projecting here. You don't. I know he used the word proper, and so I'll address it. There is nothing wrong with buckets and carboys. And in fact, a glass carboy, oh gosh, and I'm forgetting it. You said it before we recorded, anvil.
Yeah, they make a cooling system for a carboy, fits right through the carboy opening, and it's a simple pump and a temperature control and some tubing. Then all you need is a reservoir, which what works really good is one of those little igloo coolers, like a lunch cooler. And then you just need, what I did is I built the same thing when we added an auxiliary cooling circuit to the other conical in the brew room. You just add a reservoir with and it pumps the cold water from the chiller. Well, you don't need the chiller. You just put ice water in there. It'll keep it cold, and then it'll turn the pump on and off. There's a thermocouple temperature sensor that goes on the outside of the conical, or the whatever fermenter you're using. Just tape it to the outside and set your temperature, and it'll turn it on and off.
I had totally forgotten about that option, and for Christmas, spoiler, because my dad listens to the show, so sorry, Pop, if this ruins anything. I was thinking, I'm going to go big. I'm going to get a glycol setup. I'm going to get the CF 15. I'd do that. We're going to go big, and that should be like $1,000, right? Or plus or minus, whatever. But then you're telling me that idea. I was like, maybe we should start at that. That's after Esther's whole brain surgery and the bills come in. I'm like, maybe we'll just do ice patch. So we'll tape them around the old carboy, Pop. But no, joking aside, Anvil. Anvil is a branch of Blickman. And I believe the reason they have Anvil is because it's the products they import from out of country as opposed to just made in the USA, and they like that separation. But don't let that fool you. And I've been really impressed with Anvil stuff. That new temperature controller they put out, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it that cheap. I really don't. But I do. Chinese labor laws. But not kidding aside, their products have really been impressive. Their brew bucket, their equipment that they use for what is the Anvil Forge is their Hellfire alternative. The burner. And then the Foundry was incredible to brew on. It was easy, very straightforward. Anvil's been putting out good stuff. I might go that route even before Christmas. Like next time I'll just place an order just because. What is that the whole kit is like $1 or $1.20? What is it?
About, I think you could get the base kit for around $100, and then it goes up from there. Yeah,
$100 to $150 is not a bad price for a proven solution, something that we know will work, and could very well just be what my dad and I need in the intermediate for resolving our fermenting woes, which is like the summer we didn't even brew really because it was hot, and fermenting. Like Todd had a great solution in those dark rooms in his barn, again, air quote barn, in the compound. But even then, did your electric bill go up a bunch, Todd, whenever you have been fermenting?
I've got, the kind of air conditioning I have in there is it's got 3 different units, and one of those units is fairly small. It's for the 2 small bedrooms. So having one of those running fairly cool really doesn't cost much at all.
Oh, so that's the solution.
It's a pretty effective way to do it.
That's the solution I need.
Yeah, you need to build a small room and put a mini split on it.
You know what's so funny? And
that might be kind of expensive. Though,
I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to let a lot of listeners like to submit when I contradict myself over the episodes, especially the listeners who are binging from the early episodes till now. They love calling me out. So I'm going to call myself out first. I have gone in the last 12 months from I'm going to build out a walk-in cooler solution with my dad, and that's where we'll stick our fermenter. 2, I'm going to get a big conical and a glycol setup. To now, we're going to tape some shit to a carboy.
Yeah. That's full circle. Hey, before we leave this, we got to mention one. Well, I think we should mention one other product, that the new Spike Flex.
Oh, the Flex. Good point.
That Flex is cool.
Because you said you were cheap, which I can validate. Yeah, you definitely are. And that's kind of a intermediate. So it does a lot. It's got great connections and everything. And it's in the $200 and something range, isn't it?
Yeah, $250, I believe.
Yeah, so that's not a bad system, and they have the plus also, and you can do the temperature controller on it. I mean, the problem is it doesn't have the valve on the bottom, which is so nice, but
it's got a racking tube that goes down in that you can rotate out, and it's got tri-clamp fittings. It's really cool.
A nice setup. I mean, we are so spoiled, James, that it's hard for us to think about the possibility of not having the valve on the bottom,
Right. And
you know what? I wish you had a portable camera so you could walk over and show everybody your cool system.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Well, how long does this line go here, John?
Oh my gosh. We're about to have some technical difficulties.
No, it's really cool. If you saw his conical with his chiller underneath and the shelf he made along with the shelf, he even tiled the shelf for the all grain setup. It's really cool. I'm
in his barn.
Spoiled. It's so
really
nice.
Cool.
It's so nice.
And that great controller that he's got on the wall is awesome too.
Oh, the best I've ever seen. It's really the best. It actually is really good.
When it doesn't burn up.
It's very. When it's not burning, it is the greatest canal.
That's like my wife. That's like my wife's cooking. I mean, it's the same difference.
No, it's awesome. James did a spectacular
I want to clarify,
job,
since you brought up the Flex, which is a fantastic product. I want to I want to influence them to sending us one to review, just because it is an awesome piece of equipment.
Yeah,
but
we've never used it. We're just looking at it.
But it only does come. It is only. I think it's 7. It might be 6.5 gallon. I think it's 7 gallon.
So it's 7 capacity, and I think that they say it'll do up to 6. It depends on what kind of beer you're brewing,
right.
as always.
I'm just saying it is only in that the Flex is not a line like their CF line. It is one volume, and they have the Flex and the Flex Plus. And homebrewsupply.com or kegconnection.com if you want to configure them that way. Yeah. And like Todd said, fantastically affordable solution that I need to just suck it up and buy one with the show's money. But if Spike, you guys are listening, we'd love to review it. So they
have been really good with the equipment that we do have. They've been really helpful.
They have, and their equipment's solid. That system, every time I'm there while you're brewing on it, you have dialed in. You are so efficient. That brew day on the Bohemian Pilsner could not have been smoother and quicker. You were cleaning up before I even left town, and I leave town pretty early when I'm up there at HQ. Like I hit the road pretty early.
Oh yeah, because you work real late when you're at home. Right?
Yeah. You know, I obviously my webcams aren't working. I thought you were spying on me the whole time. I'm just putting in all those hours. But no, James had an efficient brew day. Like you started brewing. Not super early. When were you brewing at 8:30?
Well, we had a water glitch. So, and I know anybody that's brewed with a bigger system, you put the RO water in the Hermes coil, and then when you go to recirculate, you didn't check the pumps to make sure they were clean, and it put a bunch of trash into the HLT water. So we had to go back, pull it out, filter it again, and put it back in. So we were delayed about an hour.
Yeah, you started pretty late. I mean, we've started super early before, and I think you didn't start brewing until like 10:30 or 11, did you?
About 10 o'clock, I think, is when I finally got going. And then I think I cleaned up at 3:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. It was the shortest brew day. And I did the mash out. I did the 45-minute. The only difference is I didn't do a 90-minute boil like I usually do.
But you did do a decoction. I saw you.
I did. Yeah, I did that for 20 minutes, and just a simple one, just to create a little more flavor. But real simple. I love that system.
I know it's a sweet system. But yeah, Landon, if you have to go back and re-listen to this episode a bunch because we just loaded you with info, I apologize. But thank you for submitting the question. And right now is a great time to interject and remind you, if you submit a question and we take it on our show, you get a $25 gift certificate to Keg Connection or homebrewsupply.com. So moving on, our second and last question of the show comes from Robert L., who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Robert wrote, "Hey, gang, I'm a founding member of your Patreon and appreciate all of the content you provide. I also really like the new website. My new question is about using a temperature controller on my kegerator and serving beer at higher temps if I'm fermenting a beer inside the same fridge. I don't have the money right now to make my ideal setup, but I have a single kegerator with a 2-faucet tower. I don't always have 2 beers on tap, but sometimes I will have 1 keg serving and then I'll brew another beer. Right now, I'm fermenting in a closet, but this summer was hot and I had 1 batch go bad. My thought is that I could buy an affordable temperature controller to adjust the temps on my kegerator and use it to ferment. The only problem is that I don't know what to expect when I need to ferment, but also still have beer being served from the same kegerator. Is this going to be an issue? As in, will I only pour foam if I do this? If the answer you provide is that I need to buy more equipment, that's fine. I would like to start planning sooner than later. Thanks again for everything. Cheers, Robert." That's a great question for a new person. A lot
of that was covered on the last one. So.
Well, that's why, I try to theme these, and this one there was a lot of overlap. Let's start from the top. This is not an uncommon scenario. You're looking at what I was talking about before we even started the questions. My dad and I each have a kegerator at our house, and not the most ideal kind of way to ferment if ambient temperatures aren't cooperative. We couldn't have done with our current setup. We could not have done an alt beer between May and last week. I mean, just because we would not hit our temperatures, and that's one of those beers that finicky is not the right word, but you got to hit your temperatures. Well, you want to with every beer you do, but some are just a little bit more like, man, if you don't hit your temperatures, you're gonna have a bad day. So I can relate to Robert. Todd, you do equipment setups all the time and selling and configuring customers with it. If he didn't have the money, what are, like, off the top of my head, unless he's doing lagers, you don't want to serve at fermenting temperatures, right?
Even lagers. I mean, I don't know.
It's just too warm.
It's just too warm. I mean, there's really no solution. I'd like to sit here and talk about it and say, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, but you can't. I mean, there's no solution. I mean, you really need 2 units. What I would do, I think the ideal situation, if you're trying to save money and hopefully you've got some space, is to maybe get on Craigslist and find a very inexpensive refrigerator, standard refrigerator. You could put some things in. I've got a refrigerator here. I'm pointing like y'all can see that has beer on the top and it has 2 carboys on the bottom right now. And but you could do that, or you could find a chest freezer and use that, but with a temperature controller like we talked about earlier. But really, it's very, very difficult because you need 2 different temperatures.
A temperature controller, just to break down his question enough, just to give answers. A temperature controller, if he wanted to have a separate unit, even if it was like you sell, I think the brand is technically EdgeStar, but the kegerator is on kegconnection.com. I could slap an Anvil or an Inkbird or a Johnson controller on that bad boy and turn it into a fermentation chamber at the switch of a button. So if he found, I like that you mentioned the Craigslist option, because that, if you're, Robert, if you're in any civilized area of the country, no, if you're not in the boonies, you're gonna find cheap fridges on your,
or even better yet, cheap chest freezers.
That's
usually.
Absolutely.
In fact, you can buy, I think I saw one at Home Depot for less than $150.
Yeah, you can buy a brand new one that's reasonable.
Yeah, I don't
wait a minute. We had a bet on this on the show.
I'm not bringing that up.
Okay, sorry.
We're wrapping up the show, the Patreon music. Hold on. No, yes, I lost the bet because I came across a snooty. I was like, you can't get a chest freezer for less than whatever idiotic number I put. And Todd was like, yes, you can, because I did. And then contact you, and you were like, yeah, Josh is an idiot, and gave him the receipt. and made me look stupid on.
Yeah, and a nice one. He got a huge one, and I was shocked at how reasonable the price was for. I think that thing will hold a dozen regular kegs.
And y'all use the crap out of that. But I mean, every time I come up, it's like, yeah, we got beer sitting in there. Or I love it because you'll have excess kegs in there that every now and then you'll be like, Josh, take one. Oh, okay, definitely, I will. That's how I got the Kolsch.
I don't think there's none in there now, though, right?
Yeah, in fact, I'm out at the house. I have no draft beer.
Shut up! Really?
Yep.
I have one keg, and I have not used it, so I have not even tasted it yet. So.
Oh man, I feel spoiled. I
have 2 more that I'm putting. I'm getting ready for opening weekend of deer season, which is a national holiday in the country of Texas, and it's actually the sad part is that it coincides with the National Homebrew Day. It's the opening day of deer season in Texas is the same day as National Homebrew Day.
Learn to Homebrew Day. Because if it was National Homebrew Day, you could still celebrate. I mean, you don't want to drink and hunt at the same time, but the best thing
Learn to homebrew.
After, what you should do, because how many of your buddies are coming up for opening weekend? Is it going to be a packed house?
Quite a few, yeah.
Why don't you do an evening brew day? Or is that not too much on your plate with you're still healing and don't want to, I mean, you still can't lift. What is your...
These are older, more mature people like me that have most of them have no interest in learning new things or doing new things. They just want to drink.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was brutally honest, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you're not wrong.
Like people like Mark Borski would be a good example, but he actually isn't going to be here. He's going to be at the Formula One races. So
we
talked about him a few times on the show.
Wait,
so.
And F1 in Austin is going on this weekend too, or the weekend of November 2nd? Man,
I guess it's in Austin. I'm assuming since he lives
Circuit
there,
of the Americas.
Yeah,
I just don't know he goes to races in places besides Austin as well.
No, well, James, you do car stuff. Is it? I know Circuit of the Americas is the track name and the name of the event, correct?
Well, that's the track. So, like, if you're into NASCAR, Texas Motor Speedway is the track.
So the race is like the U.S. Grand Prix or something?
Yeah, they do Indy there. They do motorcycle, and then they do – I think that's the only track in the United States that hosts F1 racing.
Yeah, there used to be one in Jersey, I think. But anyway.
It's a fantastic track. It's probably one of the best in the United States.
It's fun. I go to MotoGP like every other year since it's been open. I've been able to.
See, I'd like to see that. I think that would be cool.
Dude, we'll go to the next one.
Definitely.
I'll get us tickets.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We get Todd to go too.
Oh, he would love that.
Watching cars go around in a circle. That's why
motorcycles.
Whatever. Yeah.
Well,
that's what I told Mark. I'm like, Mark, you're going to miss opening day of deer season to watch cars go around in a circle, and he thought I was a weird one.
You're a weird duck, my friend.
Well, that would be neat to see.
Getting us back real quick, because there is one part I do want to address because I think it's important for anyone listening. He asked what should he expect. Foam is the first thing that comes to my mind, James. What of his brew, like if you pick any style here, a Kolsch at that high, because let's just assume it's mid 60s is what he's talking about. What can I expect? Am I going to are tannins being introduced that I don't want there, or esters? Like what could be done post fermentation and I'm kegging if I raise the temperature that much just beyond foam? Is there anything else that one could expect if they experimented this way?
I think taste would be a thing. The foaming part, I don't think once it's set up, you've got correct. And Todd's, he knows more about that than I do, but I don't think the foaming would be quite an issue. I think it's an issue when it's cold and it hits warm, then it would foam. But if the whole system is a certain temperature, it's just not going to taste as good.
Are you talking about serving the beer?
Correct.
Yeah, it's gonna foam like crazy.
Well, no, he's actually the whole system is a certain temperature. It's not cold and then running into a hot faucet.
No, I realize that, but I'm just saying, if it's 60 degrees, it's gonna foam like crazy no matter what you do. It's gonna foam. I mean, you can't serve beer above 38 degrees unless you have that beer extremely low. So the way they're able to not have English beers foam and serve them at like 50 degrees is that they're carbonated at a much, much lower level. So, it would be the equivalent of carbonating it to like 6 or 7 PSI, and then you can have a slightly higher temperature. But if you're serving beers that are carbonated normally, I just don't think there's any way you can keep them from foaming at that temperature.
Yeah, and that's what I assume too, but I've just never tried. And to be frank, it's not really something I want to try just because I'm afraid of the repercussions of raising my beer to that temperature. Obviously, it's not going to spoil the beer. Like we've left, when we cleaned out your kegerator, Todd, last time I was up there, we left that keg of pale out after it was chilled for 3 hours. And it probably got raised up to right about there. But
taking it out for 3 hours and putting it back. I mean, you buy beer off the shelf that's, they've been sitting on the shelf and it's canned or whatever and bottled. That's not going to necessarily hurt it. What's going to hurt it is, it just won't work.
Yeah, that is the answer. It won't work. But things that we talked about in the first question, like I said, he would be relevant to him for fermenting issues. Using like that. Look into that anvil setup.
That'd be what I would do. I've talked about this before in a previous episode. I used I had a tub full of water, and I went to Walmart and bought some of those ice packs. I bought a dozen of them, threw them in the freezer, put a temperature strip and a floating thermometer in the water. And every morning I would put 6 in. When I get home from work, I would take those out because they thawed out. I'd put 6 more in, or however many you need to maintain fermentation temperature. And I can keep it stable within 3 degrees.
Yeah, and that served you well for a while. I remember you telling us.
I had it in a closet, and I did that for years with no issues.
Ingenuity is your middle name.
It's the mother of invention. I was thinking that in my mind. That is ingenious. Yeah.
It really is. James always says, I'm not an engineer. And then you do stuff like that, dude. I know.
I just don't have any money. So you figure out.
He's not formally trained, we'll say that.
I'm going to wrap it up right now, but before I because this show is about my ego, I forgot to bring this up at the top, which if anyone's tuned out already by now, then you missed out. I don't know. James, you buy musical equipment. I don't know if you got your winter lookbook from Sweetwater. Did you get that?
Ooh, that's nice.
I go on their website every now and then, but I don't get any paper mailings. Most of my stuff I get through eBay or Amazon.
I don't think I've seen it before. What's on when you open it? What's in there?
So let me go ahead and show you. When you open up the new Winter 2020 lookbook, look at that front cover. Look at that guy.
Hey.
Oh my gosh.
That looks like a Homebrew Con photo.
Right? Yeah, that's my buddy Kenny Sherritts. He has a fantastic YouTube channel if you're a drummer, specifically for like tuning and stuff. He came over when I got my new kit in April, and I posted the photo, and Sweetwater just asked me like, hey, can we use it for marketing material? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I should have negotiated better. I should have asked for a discount or something.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'll sign this copy for you, Todd, if you'd like me to bring it.
That would be an honor.
Shut up. I don't roll your eyes. I hate you. Anyway.
I roll my eyes?
Yeah. You were on camera too. It's going to show.
That would be an honor.
The louder I talk, the more serious I am. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day. I know we did a lot of small talk before, and I know I've taken up way more time than you'll have to give. So I appreciate it as always, and I'll catch you guys soon.
Thanks.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Remember that ultimately this show is made possible by people like you. Consider joining our Patreon community by going to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and see the cool perks we have for our community. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.